It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back. It is your Feel Good Breakfast Show. We're live, large and in charge. It's the Wednesday morning, and you know what it means on a Wednesday. It means it's time to take a look at our feature where we focus on the unconventional side of the law, and we call it So Now What? And we're joined once again by our expert lawyer and director at Legalese.co.za, Eitan Stern. Happy New Year to you. I nearly said happy birthday.
It's not actually almost my birthday at all. But,
it would have been nice.
A couple of months, sure.
It would have been nice.
Happy New Year.
Just Happy New Year to you. Welcome back, by the way. Today we're talking about immigration and immigration, right, in South Africa. Now, does this laws abide, like, in the South Africa as well as internationally? Is it, like, on the same status? Yeah?
So it's interesting. So every country in the world has sovereign borders, and they're allowed to essentially manage their borders as they want to. So every country in the world is going to have different laws around immigration. So basically, who's allowed? They can decide who can come in and who can go out, essentially, of their country. So every country is going to have a different one. So a country like South Africa, you know, it's this difficult balance. You want to make sure that enough people can come in because we've got a brilliant tourist industry. You want to respect international laws and let in refugees into your country when they need to come in. But you also can't have too many people coming into your borders. You can't have people coming in and working when they're not allowed to. And you also, now there's this diplomatic game to play with other countries, because if we need visas to other countries, they might need visas to us, etc. So it's this difficult game that's played, and every country in the world plays it and decides their own laws around their own borders.
Yeah. So when it comes to wanting to move out of South Africa, so you're emigrating.
Sure.
You're emigrating out of South Africa. What are the basic forms of clearance that need to be abided by and that you need in order to be eligible for immigration status?
Okay, cool. So you don't actually need the status to emigrate. Anyone can essentially do it if they tick off the things that they need to do. And you must remember, it's not just if you wanted to leave the country for good. It's also if you want to go on holiday, you have to have certain things in place. So, firstly, you need to have the right documentation. So you need to have your passport. A passport is this international booklet that allows people to travel around the world, and all countries in the world agree to the same system.
The green mamba, as they call ours.
They call ours the green mamba, although that's it's becoming a little less difficult. So there's countries that we're starting to ease the amount of countries that can come into South Africa, and it's starting to open up a bit more. But you need your travel documentation. If you're planning to leave the country for good and you want to take all your money out the country, you might need Reserve Bank clearance for that, because you're not allowed to. South Africa manages its currency quite carefully, so you're not allowed to just take all your money out the country. So the Reserve Bank, you might need clearance from them. And then really important to remember, if you've got children, you need to have an unabridged birth certificate to make sure that you are allowed to be traveling with that child, because obviously as there's travel, there's also child trafficking, which is an absolutely terrible thing. So countries do what they can to make sure that doesn't happen. So you need to be traveling with an unabridged birth certificate of that child. And if you're a single parent traveling with your child, without you are going to need consent of the other parent to make sure that you're not just taking your child out of the country and leaving another parent here behind. So it's very important, if you're traveling with a child, to make sure that you know what's needed and that you get all the documentation. Otherwise, you won't be allowed to leave.
In what way would someone be strictly denied to leave the country?
Okay, so there would be circumstances. So again, in South Africa, we have freedom of movement. So it's going to be fairly extreme circumstances that someone won't be allowed to leave. The one would be if they don't have a passport in order to go. The other would essentially be if they are leaving through, well, not a legal border. You're only allowed to come in and out of any country through ports or borders, or airports, essentially. So and what's going to happen is you're going to go through a system. You're going to go through customs and have your passport stamped. If you just
walk across the line into Botswana, no.
That's not going to be allowed. And thirdly, if you've got a criminal record, or not a criminal record, sorry, a warrant out for your arrest.
Like a band or something.
So you are a fugitive from justice, essentially, and then the country doesn't want you to leave. It doesn't want people to, the borders don't want you to be able to leave and run away from the charges. So it's very important to remember that. Theoretically, if you even got a minor warrant for something like a driving charge, theoretically, you know, you could be stopped at the border, but that would be quite rare. But yeah, if you're a fugitive from justice, you're going to have to stay and deal with the law.
Yeah. Eitan, good to see you. We're going to keep you here a little while longer as we continue to investigate and understand what happens during immigration and immigration. But hopefully, hashtag you're staying.
Yes.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Well, we're continuing our discussion in the very interesting and very unconventional side of the law edition that we call So Now What? And we're talking immigration and immigration, especially with regards to South Africa. We've got our expert lawyer and director at Legalese.co.za, Eitan Stern, and he's joined by immigration lawyer and CEO of Black Pen Immigration and Recruitment, Nora Darwood, to unpack specifics. Thanks for joining us in this chat.
Now, we were focusing a lot on immigration. Now, let's talk about immigration.
Sure.
So a lot of people come into the country for careers, for spouses. What are some of the other common reasons why people move into the country?
Okay. So I guess there's quite a few reasons that people would move in. People might move in because they're getting married. As we said earlier, they might be moving to escape situations and war in their own country. Those are called refugees, and South Africa has to let them in under certain circumstances. People can also get visas for studying in South Africa. You could also get a visa to come retire in South Africa. So the Immigration Act will have a whole lot of different reasons like that people will be moving into the country. I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that.
Yeah, I think the main reason why people come to South Africa is either for work. There are a lot of opportunities for foreigners to work in South Africa, as well as a lot of come for retirement. So they retire in South Africa, or they want to start a business in South Africa. So these are the reasons why especially Cape Town is a good
Now,
place
I understand
to
that the process has now been outsourced from the Department of Home Affairs to a company called Visa Facilitation Services. How has this changed how it all works when it comes to...
It's not really a change. It's basically before the change in 2014 happened, you went to Home Affairs directly, and you could use a third provider. So you could go through an attorney, immigration practitioner, or an advocate. And that Home Affairs or the law cut that out. So now you need to go in person. That's the main difference. The VFS doesn't have they cannot make any decisions in regards to immigration. That will still be done by Home Affairs. So they basically collect the documentations, they check if everything is right, and then it will be sent to Home Affairs in Pretoria. And they do the final decision. Once they approve it or reject it, they give the outcome to VFS. The main reason and why it is now better is because you can track the application. Before that, it was like you went to Home Affairs and you don't know what happened afterwards. If you are lucky, you get an outcome. That can now be tracked, which is by far nicer, but it's a bit more, the applicant has to go directly, so you can't just send someone. They take your fingerprints, that is one of the main reasons, and it goes quicker, apparently.
Apparently.
So funny you mentioned this, because a few years ago I was traveling to Morocco where I was on the cruise ship, and then they actually wouldn't allow South Africans to go into Morocco. And I was like, but I'm from Africa. So what are some of the reasons why why a country would ban people from their country?
Okay, so there's a couple of reasons. In South Africa, we largely have kind of two categories: undesirable people and prohibited people. So you would be a prohibited person from entering South Africa if you were, say, part of a terrorist group, or you were convicted of, say, a hate crime in another country, or you had an infectious disease that South Africa didn't want to come into the country. And those are quite serious groups of people, prohibited people. You also get undesirable people, which is going to be a bit lighter, which South Africa says we don't want them in. And that's people that might have been that might have overstayed their visa in the past, or might be unrehabilitated, insolvent, so they'll be bankrupt in another country. And so you've got categories like that South Africa wouldn't want them in. I don't know if there's anything that you want to add to that.
Yeah, the undesirability became quite big since 2014, because as I said, Home Affairs has taken forever sometimes to issue a visa. So what happens when your current visa and your passport expired, but you're still waiting for an outcome? So till 2014, it was okay. You could stay in the country, and if you want to leave the country, you just took the acknowledgement of receipt, or before that, a Form 20, and you could fly out. That has stopped overnight. So you went to the airport, you believed you still can fly out with your acknowledgement of receipt, and they said, no, now you are undesired. That means you cannot come back into the country. And they even babies, 6-month babies, got undesired. So that needed to be uplifted. So the family got separated. The father is South African, the wife was German, and now the baby is a mix of. And now the wife has to go because she overstayed the visa and needs to go banned for 5 years. Obviously, that is a problem with the constitutional rights. So, and that needed to be uplifted. But at that stage, she was undesired. And now you need to make an uplift and explain to them what was the good cause, and that can take a while. So you're separating a family for a while. And that was the big issue with the undesirability. And that is happening quite often. People waiting for an outcome inside South Africa, and they're not getting it in time, they need to fly, and then they are undesired.
Wow.
And you can uplift it if you have a good cause.
Yeah. So clearly lots for us to understand, and unfortunately we've run out of time. That felt like a very elegantly compressed episode of Border Control. I loved it so much. And of course, if you're looking to find out more, you can visit Eitan and his lawyers at Lawyers of Legalese on social media. And Nora, you can catch at Blackpen Immigration and Recruitment on social media. Thanks to both of you for joining us. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.